What is data migration? That will be my first point. Why do we migrate data? Then what are the tools that I will be using for migrating my data? Why is SQL so important? And the basic SQL queries. Out of these 5 topics, I want to dedicate this session to this topic because without SQL, we cannot analyze data, and without data analysis, you cannot migrate data. That's the simple concept. So, what is migration? Let me start with the basic concept of migration. Migration is, for example, you have a system, you have some legacy system. I have ECC system, I can have Oracle system, or I can have data in the form of Excel files. And now I want to migrate this data to S4 HANA system. Earlier, we used to move to ECC. Now SAP has come up with a new system called S4 HANA system. So we will be migrating this data, right? But there's a saying like data is the new oil. But before using this oil, you have to extract it, transform it so that you can get the meaningful information from it. Everybody wants to have the data as clean as possible. If I extract my data from my legacy systems and there's a bad data, then there's no point of migrating this data to S4 HANA and spending millions of dollars. There is no point. My second point is like, why do we migrate data? First point is like bad data. I can have bad data. For example, I had 10,000 customers and vendors in my legacy system. Now, out of those customers and vendors, I'm not doing any transactions since 10 years or 20 years. Or some of my customers, some of my vendors are one-time customers, one-time vendor. Or there were some customers or vendors with whom I intended to do business, but later on, I'm not having any transactions with them. This is an unnecessary data residing in my systems. It's just slowing it up. I don't want this data into my new system. So the first point will be like bad data, right? I already mentioned what bad data is. Now, second thing can be like upgrades. SAP had ECC. Now SAP wants to move to S4 HANA system. So there's an upgrade. And SAP is, you can say like everybody has to move it by 2027. So there's an upgrade we have to move. In the future, there can be like S5 or say Q10, something like that. And then we have to again migrate the data. So there will never be any point like when the data migration consultants will not be like relevant to SAP, because every time there will be data migration. Every time SAP has to come up with something so that it can remain in business. Second thing can be like upgrades, as I mentioned. Whatever I'm mentioning, I want everyone to keep a note of this because this is going to help you in your interview processes as well. These are the questions that everybody asks. So please keep a note of this. And if anyone has questions, please don't be shy of asking. If you ask me a question 10 times, please don't hesitate. I don't mind any question. No question is silly for me. The third thing can be mergers and acquisitions. For example, let's take an example of PepsiCo. PepsiCo acquired, say, Coca-Cola in future. It can be a possibility, right? Or it acquired some ABC company. Now, my ABC company is having data in some legacy system. Let's name that system as A. Now, Pepsi has data. Let us assume like Pepsi has data only in one system. We do not consider geographical locations as of now. We consider they have a system and it's named as B. Sometime later, they do like a merger with some other organization and their data is residing in C. Now, if I ask the data owners, hey guys, we need to take a decision. For example, the decision like which of the plants I need to close. Each and every business has to take care of its profits. If there's a plant that is manufacturing some data, sorry, that is manufacturing some materials and there is no sale associated with it, right? So there is no point of running those plants. Or there's a customer, I'm not doing any say transactions with that customer. So I need to prioritize like how I will be giving him the discounts, how I will be setting up my pricing conditions, right? So there can always be such scenarios. Now, if you tell the data owner, I need a report, so what he has to do, he has to go to system A, generate a report, go to system B, generate a report, go to system C and generate a report. These are 3 different reports. So overall, I don't have a single source of truth, right? How many resources do I need? I don't have a single source of truth. How many resources I need? I need for three systems, I need three different resources, or I need the same manpower of three, like for which will be involving like three time frames, right? So this is not making any sense to me. Now consider some companies like maybe Abu Dhabi ADNOC, Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. They have close to 29 systems. How will they create these reports? How will they take business decisions? So what they want to do is like have a single source of truth. What they will do, they will just finalize or they will just analyze this data from legacy A, system A. They will analyze the data from system B. They will analyze this data from system C, and then they will take a call which data from A will go to S4, which data from B goes to S4, which data from C goes to S4. So how do we as data migration consultant take these decisions? For that, we have a term called DDM, data mapping documents, or we call this a data mapping document. Simple. Mapping documents. Mapping document is the Bible of any migration project. Okay. When I say Bible of any migration project, I mean whatever has been written in the document, my mapping document, I will be creating my programs based on that. If there is any deviation from it, it may result to errors, and that's not a good thing to do. So always stick to the mapping document. Now, what will a particular mapping document have? A mapping document will have the extraction criteria, which we also call as filter criteria. It can give me XREFs. Now, what is this XREFs? I will explain. Then it can give me mapping. Extraction criteria. What is this extraction criteria or filter criteria? For example, let us take an example of PepsiCo. PepsiCo has a source system A and it's having data of say 50 countries over there. Now it wants to migrate data in different pilots. In each pilot, it wants to move data for a particular country. For example, I have pilot one where, sorry, I have pilot one where I will be migrating the data for country US. Then in pilot 2, I want to do it for UK. Then in pilot 3, I want to do it for, say, Germany, so on and so forth. Now, in the mapping document, they will simply write a criteria or a filter. Hey, please migrate this data for country US. So in your landing, whenever we are extracting data from the legacy, we will filter based on this extraction criteria. In data migration projects, you will always find four documents. One is DDD, which we called as like mapping document. One is FS, which we call as functional specification document. One is TS, which we call as technical specification document. One is TUT, FUT, which is unit testing document, technical and functional unit test document. I want to focus here first. Mapping document. Now, you might be well aware now, like what is a mapping document? Mapping document will have extraction criteria or filter criteria. It's simply an Excel file where I can have multiple sheets. In one of the sheets, you can maintain like, hey, this is version 1, 1.1, what are the different changes happening? Because we want to keep track of each and everything in the mapping document. Because if at any later point of time, usually what happens is like if company A is doing the migration, company B will always have the audits. So they want to check if resources are doing the work as per the hours they have charged to the client. So we will always have version control in the extraction or DDD document so that everybody knows, hey, there were some 200 changes. It's not like somebody will create a DDD and we will be migrating the data in a single go. It never happens. It has to undergo through number of changes. Some, for example, maybe for material master, you can have some 2, 3 changes, but for transactional objects, you can have 20, 30 changes. So you will keep track of everything using version control. The extraction criteria will tell you like from which table you will be extracting what data. For example, if I take this example, I want to migrate the data for vendors. So my extraction criteria can tell me, hey buddy, please extract the data for country. So say for country US. Now my account group can be XXXX. Now my vendors should not be marked for deletion. I do not want to migrate vendors marked for deletion. So everything has to be there in the extraction criteria. Everyone is clear till now? I want to go slow. I don't want to rush here because these are the basic classes. I want to go really slow. Let me move to cross-referencing now. I want each and everyone to keep a note of this. When I show you the configuration tables or the configuration checks, I want to explain you what is the difference between cross references and the configuration checks. Most of the people are confused over here. Okay. So please keep a note of it whenever we discuss config tables or validations in data services. Then if I don't remember, please ask me this question. What is the difference between cross references and configuration tables? Now, what is a cross referencing? Cross referencing is you are making data relevant to SAP. Simple as it may get. In your legacy system, okay, you can have something like a country as India, or you can have Germany, or you can have United Kingdom. SAP does not understand this language, you know. SAP doesn't know what India is. SAP has some configuration tables. For example, for country, there is a configuration table. We call these config tables. Whichever table mostly starts with T, it's a config table. Mostly. We call these config tables, we call these check tables. For example, for country, I have a config table T006. Now, what happens inside T006 is there will be a field land one, then there will be a description to this field. Now, for IN, it will be India. Now, for US, it will be United States. For UK, it will be United Kingdom. Okay. Now, if my data is coming as India, I have to make it relevant to SAP, right? So I need to create some files, which we call as cross-referencing files. So what I will do, my legacy data will be having United Kingdom. I will change this to UK. My legacy data will be having United States. I will change it to US. My legacy data will be having country as India. I will change it to IN because SAP will not understand India, United States, United Kingdom, Germany. It's not going to understand that because in our configuration tables, that is T006, we follow the concept of normalization. What is normalization? Normalization is like if there's a country like United States of America, it's getting used in hundreds of tables, right? It's the basic SQL concept normalization. So what we do is like we keep a we configure this United country somewhere. We keep the big definition somewhere and have a code for it. Then we use this code in the tables. It's easy for SAP to store US rather than storing United States of America. That's the basic funda of normalization. Do not go into normalization. We will discuss this when we discuss SQL. I'm trying to make you understand what XREF is. Now, my functional consultants will again give me these XREF sheets. They will tell me this is legacy country and this is my target country or S4 country. And they will give me this in the form of Excel sheets, and they will give me data like this. So it will be target. I'm writing the other way around. Target, and this will be legacy. One simple example of country. I can give you one more example for plants. Legacy, then target. Suppose in the legacy system, they had a plant, say P1, they had a plant P2, they had a plant P3. Now they decided, hey, we don't want to migrate data for P1 system, or we want to dismantle P1 system, or we want to shut down P1 system. So whatever data is coming from P1 system, assign it to P2, assign P2 to P2, assign P3 to say P5. Okay. So this becomes my cross-referencing data. Cross-referencing data is you are changing your legacy data to target understandable data. What SAP understands. Because if you take this P1 to your from your legacy to target system, SAP will not understand this because the business owners will not configure P1. You understand? They are not going to understand, they are not going to configure this because they have already aligned on this that the system P1 is going to be dismantled. And in the mapping sheets, in the DDDs, in the mapping documents, they will just tell you, hey guys, whatever is coming from P1, make it to change it to P1. So this is cross-referencing sheets. You are making your legacy data relevant to S4 data. So if anytime somebody asks you what is cross-referencing, it's simply making your legacy data relevant to S4. Okay? Because I already told you this legacy data will never be configured in target system. The data that's on the right side, that is this P2, P2, P5. P2 and P5 will be configured in target system. If you take P1, your data will not load, you know. And we mostly have these cross references for config fields like country, like plant, like region. Wherever there's a configuration, there are two types of fields in SAP. One is mandatory field, one is configuration field. I want to take you to SAP once. I will show you what is the difference. So this is SAP logon, like this is my S4 system. Whenever you do any migration, first always go to SE11. Please remember these T codes. Keep a note of these. Just remember them as you know the palm of your hands because this is important. For example, I want to migrate my data for Mara. I will go to SE11. I will hit Mara. I will do a display. Now, do you see the? Please forget about mandatory. We don't care about mandatory. But apart from my mandatory, whichever field has a tick mark over here, it's a mandatory field for that table. So whenever you try to migrate data, you will always have a mandatory check on this field. In data services, we will do validations. So this field will always have a validation called mandatory validation because if you take a null and try to migrate data, this is going to fail. Somebody from ABAP or SD or they might have questions on number ranges, but we can post material as null and the internal numbering will take care of that. But I don't want to go there as of now. If there is a field, let me take you to MAKT because some of you might have a question. Hey, I can take Mara is null as well. Let me take MAKT. So in MAKT, that is my material description. You see, material has to have a value and the language. that is pras, it should have a value. So whichever field has a tick mark over here, it means it has a mandatory validation. Okay. Then if I go to input help check, please remember this. These two tabs are really important. One is fields. This will always tell you which all fields has a mandatory check or a mandatory validation, and which all fields have a configuration check. If you see, you can see over here, check table T002. It means if you want to migrate language for a description, then that language has to be configured in T002. If you are trying to migrate some description and you choose the language as German, then German should be configured in T002. If you do not do that, your data is going to fail. Spras is language. 0 means Serbian, 1 means Chinese, 2 means Thai, D means German, E means English. So if you are trying to migrate your data for material description, and if you are trying to push language, then that language has to be configured here. This is what we called configuration checks. So what do we understand till now? Cross-referencing is simply making your data relevant to S4. Whatever data is coming from legacy, mostly for the configuration fields. I have already shown you how to check if a field is a configuration field or a mandatory field. If a field has a tick mark, it is a mandatory field. If you go to input help check in SE11, if it's having a check table over there, then it means it's a configuration field. So by the use of these cross-referencing sheets, again, these will be provided by your functional consultants. They will create these sheets, and you have to change this data. India will change to IN. And if you see this IN, US, UK, or language, this has to be configured in the system. If I take United States will not be there in the system. These records will fail. That's the reason XREF is simply making your data relevant to S4. And what is a configuration check? Simply whatever fields are there for your table that need to be configured, you have to check those fields. You have to validate those fields in your data services if that particular value is present in S4 or not. If currency, for example, I'm trying to move currency data, if that particular currency is configured in the system or not, if that particular plant is configured, if that particular country is configured. If you try to migrate data without these mandatory checks and this configuration checks, your data is going to fail. And please remember, in data migration, if we have 1,000 records and if you fail them in the preload validation, say 999 you fail, it's okay. But the remaining one record, it has to get loaded. If you are not able to load your data at the last moment, you are posing a risk to the overall process. Because what happens is, like, if I am validating my data and sending this to my business, hey, your countries are not validated, sorry, configured, your currencies are not configured, they have the time to do it. But then I'm giving them a beautiful picture. Hey, your data looks picture perfect for me to load. And then when I go to load and it's not getting loaded, that's a risk, because you are not telling them upfront that your data is having the issues or your systems are not configured properly using data validation transform. And you will get to know whenever I am passing my data to the validation transform, it will check your data against the cross references, against the mandatory checks, against the bad data, against these configuration checks. And if a record is passing each and every validation, then and only then I call that data as load ready data or enriched data. If it's failing any of the validation, I will fail that. For example, Somebody is trying to ask me, hey, please migrate the data for telephone numbers, and somebody is giving me telephone number like 8 characters, or somebody is giving me like 0000, say 11 characters. I will fail this data because I will always have a format check. I will have different checks in my boards or data services. One is mandatory check. I already spoken about it. Like, what is a mandatory check? Whatever SAP has primary keys or tick marks, that is a mandatory field. So that should not be null, right? It cannot go blank. Second thing is cross references xref check. I will talk about this in a moment. Third is configuration check. Config check is something like you are checking your data, whatever you got after transforming your data from legacy to S4 relevant. You change your country from India to IN. Now you will check if this IN exists on T006 or not. So in your validation transform, we do this. We do a configuration check. We do a lookup on T006, and then we check if this data is there in the S4 HANA system or not. If it's not there, it will fail. Then we can also have like format checks. For example, I know like my telephone number should be 10 digits. If it's less than or greater than 10, I will fail this data. So we have all these provisions in data services. Now somebody might ask me, hey, what now? If you are having a config check, then why am I even having an xref check? I want to give you an example. For example, I am told, hey, Brad, please change this country. This is my legacy. Now, this is my country underscore target. In my mapping document, they mentioned, hey, please migrate the vendors for account group, say X001. Now, when I am getting the account group X001, I am getting the countries United States, I am getting India, I am getting Germany, I am getting Poland. For example, now in the this is for account group. Please consider this as account group. When I put a basic filter, they did not give me any filter on the country. They asked me, hey, please move the data for account group X001. Now, for this particular account group, I am getting 4 different countries. Okay. But in the XREF sheets, they only gave me if there is India, please change it to IN. If there is Germany, please change it to D. Now, when I try to transform my data for US, I don't have any S4 data, right? I don't have any S4 data for United States as per their XREFs. So for United States, I will get null or blank because they have not given me any target value for United States. For India, I will get IN. For Germany, I will get DE. And for Poland, again, I will get null. Right? So what I will do, I will have an XREF validation wherever my legacy data is not null, but my S4 data is coming out to be null. It means they have not given me the cross-referencing for that. I will go back to my business owners. I will ask them, hey buddy, you have given me account group X001. Out of that X001, I see I have 4 countries showing up in my data. You only gave me that configuration or XREF, 2 countries, India and Germany. How about United States and Poland? Then my business owner will analyze this data and he can come up with 2 answers. One, hey, sorry, mate, I forgot to give you the United States cross referencing. And he will add cross referencing for US here. Or he can tell me, please do not worry about US and Poland. As of now, these 2 countries are out of scope. So I will fail these 2 countries so that I don't migrate them to S4 HANA system because they are out of scope. They will not be having any configuration for US or Poland over there. So that is how we make use of XREF checks. So it's a right hand thumb rule. Whenever you have an XREF, on any field. For example, plant, you will always get two fields in your transform, or you will always get two fields in your table, into your tables. One will be legacy, one will be target. For example, country legacy, country target, plant legacy, plant target. And whenever your plant target is coming as null, it it has to fail in the cross referencing validation. How these different validations work in BODS? When we have a session on BODS, I will explain each and everything. But I want you to take the concept as of now. How do we validate data? Because it's very important to validate data. I will again repeat. If you have 10,000 records and you are failing 9,999, I don't care. But if you are passing, if you are telling me as a business owner, hey Brad, one record is load ready, you should be able to load that record. You should never do like 10,000 out of 10,000. You are not keeping the proper validation checks, and then you are telling me 9,000 are load ready, and when you try to load, you are failing 8,000. That's not a good thing to do. That's not what a good data migration consultant will do. What a good data migration consultant will do, he will always keep his validations up to the mark, be it mandatory validations, be it configuration checks, be it format checks, be it XREF checks. These cross-reference files, these will be shared with the data migration team along with mapping document by the functional team. Functional owner is responsible for creating these cross-referencing fields. That is point one. Now, when we receive these cross-referencing files, what we do is we dump this data into some table. Say I name it as PL underscore plant underscore xref, and I keep it in my HANA Studio. Then I will make use of this table in order to manipulate my data. I already touched upon it. When we validate our data, if there is an extra failure, we go back to the functional owner or the business owner. We tell him, hey, this validation is there, and you have not provided me the cross referencing for these many records. He will tell me whether these records are out of scope for that particular pilot, or he needs to update the crossref. If he updates the crossref, then you have to update that data into your table. I already told you we can load data from an Excel file into our HANA Studio table. I will update that Excel. The moment I run my job, that data in my TBL underscore country underscore xref will get updated and I am good to go. But I will not let any of the records pass through my validations or go into my load ready data for which the cross referencing is not given, because it means either that is out of scope, or they have not given, or they forgot to give me the cross references. Because for those particular countries or plants, the configurations will not be there in the SAP. They do not want to move data for those countries or those plants, and it makes no sense for me to even try to load this data. All in all, up till now, everything is being managed by the functional owner. He has to manage the DDD. He has to manage the cross references. If there are any changes to the cross references, he will let us know. If there are any changes to the DDD, he will let us know, and he will maintain it in the version control. Hey, on this particular day, there was a change in scope. Now we added country Poland to the migration scope, so that we know what all efforts were there to deliver this particular object. In order to initialize your data migration is simply 5% of the work. 95% of the work has to be done before. So let me start with the discovery phase. So what happens with the discovery phase is we simply get all the data. We extract all the data relevant to that particular pilot. For example, if I have a pilot for UK, I will extract all the data for UK. If I have a pilot for, say, plant is equal to 2222, I will extract all the data for 2222. Then I will write some rules in information stewards, and I will analyze my data. What I will analyze is if any plant is getting, I'm just giving an example, okay? There
Okay.
will be thousands of rules that I will be writing in information towards just to come up to the concept of DDD, extraction filters, data harmonization, and these XREFs. Please don't get confused. I will touch base on everything. So what I do is like I will extract all the data. I will write some rules in my information stewards. I will analyze that data. Then I will come to know what has to what my DDD will actually look like. For example, I analyzed my data and I found out from my plant 2000 nothing is getting manufactured from the last 2 years. Then what decision will the business owners take? They will come up with a plan. Okay, let's dismantle this. Now, what if I'll be having some 2000 materials that were created 6 years before? They are still tagged to this plant 2000. So what they will tell me, okay, from the first point, if I analyze my materials, I found out for plant, please try to understand this concept. How I come up to this DDD extraction criterias, data harmonizations, cross-referencing. First, I will go into my discovery phase. I will try to discover how, in the discovery phase, data owners have to take a call whether they will go ahead with the data migration or they have to first clean up their data. They set different parameters for it. For example, some business owners decide, okay, if our data is 60% clean, we will go ahead with mock 1. Then for mock 2, we will do the cleansing and we will reach up to 70, 80%. And then when we are going for the actual cutover, our data should be 100% clean. So they set different timelines for that. Suppose in my discovery phase, I found out, okay, my data is 60% clean. I will go with the data migration. So what they will do, they will, first of all, they will analyze their data. Suppose they analyze for plant 1001, no data is being manufactured from past 5 years. But when I go to their legacy system and check, I see 1000 materials still have the plant 1001. Now they took a decision. Okay, we don't want this plant 1001 in target system. I tell them by my reports, okay, if you're not going to have this configured in your target system because you're dismantling this, what will happen to these 1000 materials? Then they decide, okay, let's create a cross-referencing. What they do in the cross-referencing is they will say, okay, whatever material is for plant 1001, change it to 2002. So this forms the basis of cross-referencing, or this we call it in a broader term, data harmonization. How do we harmonize data? How do they take up the calls? If I have some 200 plants, how do this, which plant to set up in my S4? Which plants will get dismantled? And if all the dismantled plants, if there are some 2000 materials, how are we going to migrate them? Because they need those materials. You can even ask me a question. Okay, they thought like, okay, 1001 plant is not going to have, I mean to say, configured in S4 HANA system. Let's not migrate these 1000 materials. Let's make them out of scope, or let's mark them as marked for deletion in legacy system and just ignore these 1000 records. But what if they created a material maybe in 2006 and they sold it to someone and they have given a guarantee for this material for the next 30 years? What if the customer comes back? If for a material, so for example, they created a material in 2020 and now they want to shut down this plant. They sold this material way back in 2020, no material being sold since 2020, but for that one particular material, they have given a warranty of 10 years. Even if their, say, I mean to say, customer comes back in 2000, say from 2020, he comes back in 2029, they still have to give the warranty, right? So they still have to create this material. So these type of decisions we take in the data discovery or the discovery phase, where we will bring up our cross references. We will decide on the data harmonization. We will discuss on all the materials, customers, vendors, cost centers, everything, work centers, everything will be decided, like what will be the scope and how these data will be migrated. So what is a mapping document? A mapping document is like, I have a table, say Mara, it has 170 different fields. I do not want to migrate all my fields to S/4HANA because that makes no sense. If you look at the legacy system, 60 to 70% of fields do not have a value. It's like it will be either null or it will be zero, system generated. So what we do in the mapping document, the functional owners, they will map each and every field from legacy to target, and then they will write a transformation, if any, for the field. For example, we have different sections. It's simply an Excel sheet, simple. There will be source on the left, sorry, there will be target on the left side or source on the left side. Then they will keep a source on the right side, and then they will keep the mapping, everything inside a sheet. Then they will keep a transformation. Here, from the target side, they can write something like, okay, they can write Mara dot Matner. From the source, it's coming from Matner, Mara dot Matner. Mapping is 1:1. So whatever is coming from the legacy, please map it. Transformation can be not applicable here. Then they can give me, okay, Mara dot means unit of measure. It's coming from Mara dot means. Now it can be transformation. Let me just say, like, there will be no transform, but they are giving me something like use xref. They will mention something like this xref. So what they will give me, they will give me a sheet for unit of measure, and I have to that sheet, xref sheet, will already be there in the ddd, and they will give me a cross referencing. Okay, if there is a unit of measure like piece, change it to say each, change kg to say grams, something like that. So they will give me a cross referencing. Or for example, there is a field like means, sorry, Mara dot material group. It will be coming from Mara dot Mara.matcal. Then they can say like not applicable. Not applicable is this field is out of scope, or they can write simply out of scope. Okay, here it is. So what mapping document does is, it will just give me the mapping from source to target. Okay, there is a Matner field in source. It has to be mapped to the target Matner. Unit of measure has to map with unit of measure. For example, they have something called as uh, we have something called as material dot old material number, right, in S4. Or I can say like MAKTG, something like MAKT dot MAKTX, something like that. Description. They want to tell me, okay, take it from Mara dot old material number, something like that. They will tell me, okay, this is the field from legacy. You have to map it to this field in the target. Each and every field will have a mapping. It's if it's in scope, it can either have 1:1, or it can have any transformation, it can have any cross referencing. But if there are some fields that are not in scope for migration, they will simply write it as not applicable. So when you create your jobs in data services, you will not worry about these fields. You will not migrate them. You will not configure them in your iDocs. You will not validate them. As of now, I'm giving you an example for a Matcal, but there can be 50, 60 fields for each table, For example, for vendor, there might be maybe 180, 190 fields. So each and every field will not be migrated. Now the question can be, how do they decide whether this field will be in scope or not? Again, they will go back to the discovery phase. You know what usually these business owners do? They take a dump of the data, and then they analyze each and every field. If there is a field where 100% of the data is blank, they will simply make it out of scope. If there is a field, for example, telephone number, 90% of the records is having a telephone number, but 10% of the records are blank. So they will go back and they will ask their data owners, hey, please correct the data. We can see 90% is having value, but 10% is not having value. Please update the telephone number for these customers or vendors. That is the part of data cleansing. So this is how they create these mapping documents. Mapping document is nothing, simply how do we map legacy table field to the target table field, and whether there is any transformation involved, whether there is any cross-referencing involved, or whether it's out of scope or in scope. Usually, how do they come up with this? They take the dump of data from ECC systems, or they can ask us to take the dump of these data from these tables, and then they can ask us to create the reports. What we do is like we analyze based on each field. If any field, for example, Mara means unit of measure, 100% of the records are null, we tell them, we cannot tell them, or we just suggest them. You can mark this as out of scope because there is no data in your legacy system maintained for this. If the data is like 80% of the fields or 60% of the fields, if for a field, 80% of the records have a data, we then suggest them, please have some data cleansing in your legacy so that we can migrate the correct data. Now, when it comes to data cleansing, I want to touch base on two things. Usually, what business owners do is, from the data cleansing point of view, they can tell you, okay, we can do the data cleansing, but as of now, we try to migrate the data, we try to clean the data. They will commit to you, okay, by 1st of July, we will be cleaning 100% of the data. But when we reached 1st of July, they find out they could only clean 90% of the data. Now there's a tight schedule. They cannot stop data from migrating. So what they usually do is like, if they cleansed 100% of the data, we are good. But what if they cleansed only 90% of the data? They could not clean the maybe descriptions. They could not clean the telephone numbers. So what will they do? Then they will get these reports, okay, these many vendors, these many customers, we could not clean the data. Then they will do something like they will go to S4 later on and they can clean the data over there. But ultimately the first priority of each and every data owner should be like they need to have the clean picture perfect data in their S4 HANA system. Mostly 99% of the client, they will clean the data and then go ahead with the production loads. But sometimes, once in a blue moon, 10% of the client, they cannot complete this data cleansing because of tight schedule. Then they go to S4HANA systems and they update these descriptions, they update these telephone numbers, and that can also be a way forward. Am I clear on mapping documents, mapping template? How does it work? Sometimes I have seen in like for pricing. Okay, I can give you an example. For pricing, we have different tables: A620, say A621, A728. Now it might happen like you take some of the fields from A62 in the source and you migrate it to A621. Then what will happen? From the target system, you will have the mappings for like A621 dot this partner, A621 dot sales org, A621 dot something. But from the source point of view, they will write A62, A728, A728. What does this mean? This means from the source system, you have to extract A728, and then these many fields you have to dump it into S4HANA system, or you have to load S4HANA system A620 table. So what I'm precisely trying to explain here is, for example, in case of pricing, it might happen like they can tell you, okay, A620.matner in the target, it should come from A728.matner. What means is, from the source point of view, you will extract this and ultimately you will load this data into A620 table. So mapping document is like a Bible for us. Whatever has been committed in the mapping document, your code, your reports, your loads, everything should be in accordance to the mapping document. If there is any deviation from it, always have a habit. If there is any deviation, please get the DDDs updated or get these things on your emails. Otherwise, what the function owners might do at later point of time, they told you to do like this change, they forgot to do it in the mapping document, and when there are production loads, everybody says like, hey, how come this field has been loaded null, or how come this field is having value like X, because it was verbally communicated. So what, never do that, because it's going to fire back on you. Whatever is in the DDD, do that. And if there are any deviations from the DDD, ask your functional owners to document it in DDD, and then have the version controlling. This is my HANA Studio. Okay, so what is HANA Studio? Simple SQL that has been made for the S4 HANA system by SAP. It has been, earlier what they used to do is like they used to use the third party tools like SQL they used to use, or SQL Anywhere they used to use, but it used to make the processes a little slow, I can say. Then what SAP did is like they brought a new system altogether called HANA Studio, which is again a packaging. Internally, it's similar to SQL. If anyone knows SQL, he should be able to work on HANA Studio. I want to show you like how I am getting the data over here. So this is my data services. So let me log into data services. Then we can take it up from there. How do I get the data? How are these systems, everything interconnected? If you remember in the first webinar, what we discussed is like, if anyone asks me how difficult it is to learn BODS, I ask him, it's just like MS Paint. That's how simple it is. Okay, so this is my project area in the data services. This is my local object library. So this is my data services. This is my, what we call it, I can simply say this is my canvas. Okay, this is where I will be doing my work. This is where I will be creating my projects. This is my local object library. Please note it down. In SAP BODS, you can have two types of repositories. One is a central repo. Mostly you can have three, but I will touch base on two because we don't use the profiler repository. So we can have two types of repositories. One is local, one is central. In the local repository, I will log in and I will do my work, and then there will, it will be local to each and every user. For example, in my project there are 10 resources. I will create 10 different repositories for them, and they can create their jobs, projects, tasks they will do locally. But now I want to have a master copy of all the code. For that, I have a central repository. So what I do is like, while creating the repositories, I create one repo as my central repo. Then just like the check-in and check-out optionality, we can just get the master code inside the central repo. So when, for example, I and Junad, we are working, or I and somebody else is working, I create some code. Now, at the each of every pilot, or at the end of each week, what we do is like we push our local code to this central repository, so that if I am going out of the project, or maybe I resign from the company, we should have a master code somewhere, so that if new persons come in, they can just get the latest code from central and they are good to go. That's the concept of local repositories and central repositories. Local is local to you, where you will be doing your work. Central repository is where I will be having the master code. So in order to facilitate multi-user environment, SAP BODS has the concept of central repositories. Somebody might ask me a question, what happens with BODS or data services is you can save the project in the form of ATL files. Okay, there's a file .atl, and what some of the guys do is like they keep on sharing these ATLs. For example, I can do something like this. If I want to save this project, I do a right click, I do something like export, and the moment I export, it will create .atl file wherever I intend to create. I will create an ATL file on the server. Then I can give maybe my I can give it to Mike or I can give it to Alok. He will simply go to his SAP BODS, he will import this ATL file back, and then he's good to go. Okay, he can work from there. But what usually used to happen is like we used to lose the track of changes that we did. What if I did some change, you are also working on the same project, you did some change, now we need to sync up. If I am doing this by using these ATL files, there is 100% chance or 90% chances there I might lose the code, I might corrupt the repos, or I can do something in that matter. So the best approach is I have my central repo. Every local user or every user has his or her local repo. She or he works in that local repo, and when she or he is done with his object or her object, then we push the code to central repo. How do I see the central repo? You see, here I have an option called central object library. If I click here, I can see the central repository. As of now, I don't have anything on my central repo. So you don't see any projects, jobs, anything. So this is my central repo that has been set up for this session. Now, how do I activate these central repos? I go to my tools. Then here we have something called central repositories. Then I just hit it, I activate it. As of now, it's activated. That's the reason you can see a deactivate option. Or the moment you want to activate it, you have to activate it from here. Now I have my code here. I create a project. For example, I need to create a project. I will do something like this. I hit this and I do something like a project and I can create a project. Say I need to create a project. I do something like test underscore proj. The moment I do this, a project will be created. If I want to create a job, I do right click, new batch job. We will always have batch jobs in data migration. What is a batch job? Batch job is on demand job. Whenever you need some operations to perform, you execute it. We do not create real time jobs. What is a real time job? That's out of scope for data migration, but for the sake of learning, it depends on a packet of data. For example, if there is any transaction happening on the server, or with any SAP system, a packet of data comes in and then it executes or it triggers that job. It's just like that. But we will not be using these real-time jobs. We will always use batch jobs. A batch job is an on-demand job. Whenever you want to execute, you can do it. Say I do something like job underscore ext underscore I want to extract Mara. This is my job. Now, the moment I create a job, I have a canvas over here. Okay, this is something like these are the most widely used. One is a workflow. What is a workflow? I will cover this tomorrow. What is a data flow? I will cover these things tomorrow. But as of now, I want to show you like how can I extract the data from legacy? How can I dump it to my HANA Studio? And then I want to touch base on different SQL queries that I can use in my HANA Studio so that I can create reports, check my data, because in any data migration project, SQL is very important. So this is a data flow. Let me write something as df underscore extract underscore Mara. Now I go inside this data flow. See, here you can have projects. Here you can have jobs. Here you can have workflows, data flows, transforms. These transforms are very important. I want to touch base on the platform transform. I will cover most of the transform that we will be using in data migration. Some of these are important. I was explaining you about the validations in the initial phase of this session. This is a validation transform we use in data services, and it will take care of all the validation. We have to write some code inside and we are good to go. Then this is my data store. Now please do not confuse yourself between data store and a database. Database is something where we have data in the form of tables, right? Data store is simply a connection to that database. This is an important interview question. Sometimes you may be asked, what is the difference between a data store and a database? Database, I will again repeat, this is important. Database is where my data resides in the form of tables. Data store is just a connection to that database. SAP Data Services or SAP BODS, it's not having any memory of its own. It's an ETL tool, a middleware that will connect one system to another. Here we want to first connect ECC to my HANA Studio. Inside from ECC, I will extract my data. In SAP HANA Studio, I will manipulate my data. Then I will connect this to my S4 HANA system where I will load this data. This is my ECC connection. This is my HANA database, HANA Studio connection, and this is my S4 HANA system connection. So this data store will facilitate these connections by the use of data stores. I will again repeat what is a data store. If you want your electricity in your homes, you need to lay wires, That wire is nothing, it's just a connection to your LTs or sometimes to the appliances, But it's not storing anything. It just transports it. It helps you in the transportation. Similar thing is data store. Data store is simply a connection to the database. Please don't get confused what is a data store and what is a database. How do we connect this data store or how do we create this data store? We do something like this, then we do something like new. If it's if it's a HANA, see, here I can have multiple options. If I select a database, then I can select a database type. SAP BODS can connect these many types of databases. If your data is coming from SQL, it's coming from HANA, it's coming from SQL anywhere, any type of data, or you want to configure your, say, like as of now, we are having HANA Studio as my intermediate database. Please remember, I I have three types of databases over here, right? This is my source. Please remember this. This is my source. This is my intermediate database where I will be manipulating my data. And then this is my S4 HANA connection where I will be posting data. ECC to HANA DB to S4 HANA. Now, if I go here, I do something like properties. Oh, no, sorry. I need to do edit. You can see all the server details over here. You see? So as of now, this is connected. This is the application server. This is the client number I'm connected to. Then I give some details over here. You don't need to worry. Basis team will be doing all this. Everything will be ready for you. We as data migration consultants, we will not be setting up these systems. All these connections will be done by the SAP basis team. So if, for example, you are doing mock 1, you are doing something like from 800 client. But for mock 2, you need to extract data from 700 client. Then you will just change this 800 to 700. You are good to go. You want to change to 100 client, you can just change to 100 client. You are good to go. Same case with S4HANA. If I go to S4HANA, I edit. I want to load data to my 100 client today. But for mock 2, I want to load it to 200. So you will just change the configuration. You can have multiple configurations over here. You see, the moment I can duplicate this configuration and I can create one more configuration. As of now, it's pointing to 100. You can create one more configuration which will be pointing to 200. Okay. How you can change these configurations is like going to the edit and then you can use these things. Now HANA DB, simply this is the SQL, basic SQL. I want to show you like how can I manipulate data, but for that I want to show you how I will be extracting the data. Now, as the name suggests, I want to extract Mara. So how will you get the Mara into this? I told you this is just a connection. This is not a database. It's not having anything of its own. I will do a right click. I will do import by name. The moment I do import by name, a dialog box will appear where I will give the table name. Now I want to get this data from ECC and dump this data into my HANA Studio. You can have, you can import a table, you can import a function, you can import an IDOC, or you can import ODB object or hierarchy. But we will be mostly using table, function, or a BAPI or an IDOC. So let me take an Mara table as of now. The moment I do import, if the table is present, it will get imported. If the table is not present, then it will give you an error. For example, if I try to import, say, MAR3, since it's not present, so it will give you an error. cannot import the metadata. You see? So this connection is just holding the metadata. It's just a connection to the database, nothing else. BODS does not have a memory of its own. So let me touch base on this. For example, you need to extract this just like MS Paint. Simple. Drag and drop. The moment you drag and drop, it's here. Now I want to write a select query, or I want to select some fields out of this Mara. What I do is I go to this panel, I select query transform. Query transform is nothing, but it's just a way to select the fields from a table. If you have to select the fields, you just do it, then you connect this with this. When you go inside this, you can see what all fields are available. I want to extract Matner, or for that case, I want to extract everything as of now. I do something like this, then I select everything. I can simply drag and drop it. All my fields are there. As a good practice, what I always do and would suggest you to do is like always go to these primary key fields and do reverse primary key. Do not have primary keys over here because sometimes it leads to error. If you want to have like select distinct, you want to select the distinct rows, you have to click this from. If I am using more than one table, then it will allow me to use the joins over here. What is a join? Join is simply when we have data in two tables, or I need to get data from two tables, say 10 fields from one table, one field from second table. Then I will connect both these tables to this query transform, and then I can decide or define the join over here. I can drag and drop the tables, and I'm good to go. If you want to have any filters, for example, I want to extract only material type is equal to FERT. So I will simple drag and drop. This is just like MS Paint. I will do something like this, then I will write FERT. I want to extract only for material type FERT or material finished goods. So I can do that. If you want to group by, order by, you can do that. But okay, if you this is also important. If you want to find any field, for example, you want to find unit of measure. I hit it, then it will tell me, okay, here it is. This is the from the target point of view. This is from the source point of view. Any field you want to find, you can find it over here. Now I have my source ready. I have my select statement ready. This is just for the sake of selecting, filtering, sorting. I can use a query transform. Now there is something called a template here, which is called a temporary table. In BODS, 99% of the times we will be using temporary tables. What is the difference between a temporary table and a permanent table? I will explain in the next session when we go and take a deep dive into data services. But as of now, in order to see in SQL, what we have to do, we have to write a code. But BODS has simple drag and drop options because it writes this SQL code in the backend. We don't need to worry about all this, how the tables are creating, how does this work? No, I don't care about that. Simple, I will just drag this, drop it here. I will name this. For example, I want to name this as landing underscore Mara underscore test. Now this is the data store where it will go into. It will go into HANA database. Okay. This is the connection that we have already created. I do something like okay. Okay, now I have this template ready. I select this button. Okay, this is a save button. I will do this. If I want to validate, I will hit this. This is a validate all button. I want to hit this. No errors. I will run this. But before running, I want to repeat myself from point one. Okay. First thing, I went here project. I went to new. I created a project. Then inside the project, I did a right click. I created a batch job. I named a batch job. Then inside the job, I just went here from the panel. I selected a data flow. I clicked on this. When I click, sorry, I clicked here. The moment I click again on the canvas, I have my data flow ready. The moment I had my data flow ready, I imported my table that I intended to extract from ECC. Then I had a query transform. Then I created a temporary table or a template table that we call in SAP BODS. This is where we can create it. Just click on this and just drop it over here. Now, if I want to execute it in SAP BODS, job is the only executable object. You cannot execute anything other than a job. Please remember this. This is an important interview question. The only thing in SAP BODS that you can execute is a job. If you go to data flow level, you see this execute field is not enabled. This is disabled. The moment you go here, you see this has been enabled. You can run a job from here, or you can simply right click and execute. The moment I execute, it will ask me for the job server. I don't do anything here. I just say okay. Now I'm good to go. I am trying to extract my data for material type is equal to FERT. If you want to check the monitor tab, it will tell you, okay, what's happening as of now. Okay, as of now, 1300 materials are coming from my source or 5100, whatever is the count. This has stopped. It means my data extraction is complete. You see this as error as grayed out as of now. It means there is no error. If you see any error, it means you have to look out for the errors. I will show you how to debug the errors. Now, if you go to this monitor tab, you will see a red dot at the top. It means this job has executed successfully. If you go to the trace, this we call as this is trace, this is monitor, and this is error. In the trace, you can see that the job has executed successfully. Now, if I go here, if I select this, I can now see the data. If you see, I had a filter, extraction criteria, whatever you call it. I had a filter on material type is equal to FERT. Now you see, all my records will be having the material type as FERT. Nothing else will be extracted. Now, I want to write some basic SQL queries on this table. Okay, landing Mara test. Where do I do that? I go to my Hana Studio. I already told you this is a connection, nothing else. I am only trying to do it. How do I see this data? This is just a connection. You can only see this data over here because of a connection, nothing else. Please do not confuse yourself. This data does not reside in BODS. This is in HANA Studio. Landing Mara test. Now let me go to this. This is my HANA DB setup. Now I want to see like I will do right click. I want to see my table landing Mara test. Where is this? This is in system. Okay, this is the place where my table is residing as of now. This, if you see, this is my HANA DB. If you want to open this, you see there will be a table landing underscore Mara. Now I want to write a query on top of this. What I do is like I will select this system and I will hit this button. I select this, I click on this, I have a beautiful console over here. I will write a basic query. Select star from, what is the table name? I can even drag it. That is the table name. System. System is like my schema. And then this is my table. Landing Mara. If I want to remove this, I can. No issues. The moment I want to run this, I will do something like this. You see? Now I can see the data getting populated over here. If this is like the basic SQL, what I need to do in the basic SQL, I want to focus on select statement, then I want to focus on where statement, I want to focus on and or, then I want to go to the joins, I want to go to joins, and then I want to touch base on in statement. See, when I see this data, you might ask me, hey, I want to see what is the select state. This is pure English. How SQL understand this? Select. Select is simply I'm selecting something. Star. Star means all the columns that are here. From, simple. From what? from my table. This is my table. For all the guys who do not know SQL, this is for them. So simple, this is simple English. Select star means all the fields from this table. Now, if you do not want to see all the tables, you can simply write the table name. For example, I want to only see select Matner. Okay, I can do something like this. I get only the materials. You want to see units of measure. I can only select unit of measure. Now you want to see like combination of material and unit of measure. I write Matner, comma means, comma and number of fields you can write. Whatever you want to see, comma, 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 you can see it. The moment I highlight this, I run it, I see this. Now, what if, see, select I have covered. Select is simply you are selecting some fields from this table. If you want to see all the tables, then I write select star. If you want are precise, you want to see some specific fields, then you write those fields. Now, if you tell me, hey, I just want to see for this material type, what is the distinct unit of measure? So I write distinct means. What it will give me? It will give me the distinct, unique units of measure that are for material type FERT. So I am getting 47 rows over here. So these are the unique units of measure. What if I want to check the unique material types? I will write, sorry, material groups. So I will do something like this. I will do this. Then these are the unique material groups. There are nulls, there are these values. Now I want to check MTAT. MTAT is my material type. Okay, I am expecting this to be only one because we only extracted for FERT. FERT means the finished good. If you want to check the combination, again, you want to check the combination of MTAT and MATCL. As of now, we had only one distinct material type. Now I am trying to check for material type and MATCL. MATCL is my material group. MTAT is my material type. The moment I hit this, then I'm getting the unique combinations of material type and material group. Now, if I want to check the unique combination of material type, material group, and my units of measure, you see, as of now, the combination of material type and material group is only 122. The moment I keep on adding this, it might change. You see, now 250. Why? Because a particular material type and a particular material group can have multiple units of measure. Now, somebody may ask me, okay, what if I want to order it by something? Let me order it by units of measure. So simple, you have to write something like order by the field. Means if you want to sort it by ascending, ASC. If you want to sort it by descending, DSC. As of now, let me check DSC. DESC. You see, Z comes first. If I want to do it by ascending, I don't write anything, or even if I write ascending, then it will sort based on ascending. See, percentage numerics come first, then A, B, C, D, E, F, G. If you want now to do it based on like the material should be material group should be first sorted and then means should be sorted, then you can write the combination like this. You are just trying to tell the system, hey buddy, I want to see my data like first you should sort your data based on material group, then you should sort it based on your units of measure. The moment I do this, you see, first the nulls will show up, then you will see like 0.20, 0.20, 0.001, 0001, and this combination will be sorted like point for if you take an example of this, you see, this is like a group 0.200. Now E will come, then I will come. Same thing for 001. First percentage is coming, then C, E, I, L, S. So this is like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, ascending order. This is coming for each group because this is now a group. Material type FERT 001. This is like a group now, you see. But this group is having these many units of major and they are coming in ascending order. Now, what if you try to understand, hey, I just want to see the material type finished good, but the unit of major should only be ST or piece. I can write where means being my unit of major. I can write where MC is equal to piece. Okay. So what will now happen is only those material types will come that have a unit of major as PC. I want to see only those that have a material type as ST. These are basic SQL queries. I will write them down so that you understand these things. But this is the basis of any data migration project. If you want to excel in any data migration project, please focus on SQL. SQL is really important. You see, I can only get ST now. So let me write it down. So please take a screenshot if anyone wants to for the sake of learning, but I will be sending one link at the end of this session so that you can just go and practice over there. If you want to select anything, then select star from this table. It will bring up everything, whatever fields are there. If you want some specific fields, you can do select means from this. If you want something as distinct, you can see like distinct means from this table. If you want to filter out data, then you can do something like select star from this table. Then you can write like where means is equal to PC. Or if you want to order, you want any of your fields to be ordered by something, then you can do it something like this. Okay. Now what if I want to check the data for both PC and ST? Right? As of now, equal to sign will only give you for one value. Now I want to check for two values. What will I do? I will make the use of in statement. Okay, I can write something like where means, then this is the syntax for this. Nothing, just to remember. In st, comma, piece. Okay, now I'm trying to tell my system, hey, I don't want it for only st, I want it for piece as well. The moment I do this, I will get my data for both st and piece. You see, only st and pieces will come up. Now, what if I try to tell my system, hey buddy, I want to check my data. The condition is like I want to check for MBRSH should be 1 and mean should be PC. Unit of major should be piece and this MBRSH should be 1. So there are two conditions and both these conditions should be passed. Two conditions and both should get satisfied, right? Then we take the use of AND operator. We have two operators in SQL. One is AND, one is OR. If you want to check either this or that, you will check OR. If you want to see like both this and that, then there is an AND operator. For example, I will write a query for both. Let me remove this. For example, you want to say where means is, you can only have even one there, where mean and st. You can later keep on adding. I don't care. pt, st, whatever you want to. But even you can have a single field in. Now, as of now, I don't. What I want to tell my system is, buddy, I want to see some records where unit of major is piece and MBRSH equal to 1. So what I'm trying to tell the system is I want both these conditions to be satisfied. This should be 1 and means should be piece. You see, only those records will come where MBRSH is equal to piece 1 and means is equal to piece. I can even tell my system No, I don't care about what I don't want this like and I want like it can either be one or this. Okay, so I have to then replace my and by or. If I replace this with or, then what will happen is like if if unit of measure is piece, whatever is MBRSH, I don't care, it will come. If MBRSH is one and whatever is unit of measure, I don't care, but both the combinations should be there. You see, earlier what you saw is like this was one and this was piece, but now if it's one, it will come. If it's PC, whatever it is, I don't care, it will still come, because I am giving an option to the system. Want either this or this. But in case of and, I'm telling the system I want this and this. I touch based on select statement. What is a select statement? I touch based on where. Simple. This is just a filter. This is just an operator. Suppose I have a table 1. I have a table 2. Inside table 1, I'm having records A, B, C, and D. Now, inside table 2, I have my records as A, then I have my records as D. Now, I have my record as E, and then I can have my record as Z. Okay? This is my table 1. This is my table 2. What inner join will do is it will check for the record that are common to both. A and A is there, so this record will show up. B is not there, C is not there, D is there. So at the end of writing my query, I will get A and D. Why? Because A is common to both table 1 and table 2. Now what will happen? Table 1 and table 2, whatever is common will come by inner join. Okay? Now if I write an inner join, my end product will be A and D. That's it, because A and D is common. If I write a left outer join, what I'm telling to the system is get all my data from left table. Here table 1 is left. Whatever is matching from the right table, get it. Whatever is not matching from the right table, just get a null for it. But the core is I want all my left table data. So if I write a join for table 1 and table 2 for left outer join, how the data will look like? A, B, C, D. It will 100% come, because on the left hand side of data, I want all these records to be there. Now, is A on the right hand side? Yes, it is. So A will come as A. Is B on the right hand side? No. So it will tell me null. It means it's not on the right hand side. Is C there? No. It will come as null. Is D there? Yes, it is. Now it will come as D. So this is how my result will look like. Now there can be one more join, a right outer join, but we do not use it, because if I what happens with the right outer join is from the right hand side all the records will come like A, D, E, Z. Then whatever is matching with table 1, it will come. For example, if I have to write a right outer join, we will not use it anywhere, because if we have to use a right outer join, we just keep the right table as the left and then write a left outer join. We do not use the right outer join. So what will happen with the right? A will come, D will come, E will come, Z will come. But then A is there on the right side, so it will show it as A. D is there on the right side, so D will come. E is not there, it will be null. Now Z is not there, so it will be null. Now there might be a question. Okay, I understand, like, hey, inner join is something like meaningful to me. I want to find the common things. But why am I using this left outer join? I don't want you guys to focus on right outer join. Please forget it. This is of no use to us. Why do I use a left outer join? When it's already giving me back all my left table data, then why am I even using it? We will mostly use the left outer join when we want that our left side data should be there. For example, I want to migrate material data and I want to migrate its plant data. Now, there can be a scenario a material is not extended to the plant, right? And one more important thing from the interview perspective, whenever you guys go for the interviews, at any point of time, use these words. Do not use like the I'm going to say like what do you call that? Amateur words. For example, if I have to talk about materials and plant, I use the terms like extension. I use the terms like, for example, material basic data. For a plant, for customers, I use the term like general data. So whenever you talk like that in front of an interviewer, he comes to know, he knows what he is doing. If you tell me, hey, I will have a plant data for a material, it does, I can understand like, okay, but it's not having a weightage. When you tell me, hey, there is a material, it's extended to this. When you tell me, hey, there's a material one and it is being extended to plant 202, it sounds more confident to me. So let me give you an example. I have a material master. I have to migrate material master. Now, there can be a scenario. A material is not extended to a plant. Okay. I have to migrate the material data and the plant data. If I use an inner join, whichever material is not having a plant extension, it means it cannot get migrated, but I wanted to migrate it. So in that case, I will use a left outer join. So when it on the left hand side, I will keep Mara. On the right hand side, I will keep Marcy. Whichever general data will be coming, all the general data will be coming, and then whichever material has a plant extension, it will get extended. So I will not lose any data.